It's April 14th, 2022, 50 days of war in Ukraine. In the past 2 weeks, the slow and mostly stalled Russian advance in Ukraine began to pull back. What was once a frightening patchwork of red hotspots throughout Ukraine is now a solid red crescent concentrated in the east, southeast, and south of Ukraine, making up the Donbas region, the entire Azov coast, and bleeding up through Kherson near Mykolaiv. What should be a feeling of relief is perversely a wave of dread. As Russian troops abandon occupied cities, the destruction they've caused has been left behind to be discovered by residents and journalists. Early in the war, February 27th, Russian troops moved into an occupied Bucha, central Ukraine, 20 kilometers northwest of Kyiv, where they would stay for just over a month. We reported over a month ago about 3 volunteers, Anastasia Yelanska, Serhiy Ustimenko, and Maxim Kuzmenko, who were returning from a delivery of dog food to a dog shelter when they were shot by Russian troops as they approached their house. This was in Bucha, March 4th. The next day, in Bucha, March 5th, Russian troops opened fire on 2 cars carrying families trying to evacuate, killing 4, including 2 children. Bucha's mayor, Anatoly Fedoruk, told the Associated Press on March 7th, quote, "We can't even gather up the bodies because the shelling from heavy weapons doesn't stop day or night. Dogs are pulling apart the bodies on the city streets. It's a nightmare," end quote. 2 days before Russian troops pulled out of the area, Fedoruk told Italian news agency Adin Kronos that Russian forces had committed crimes against humanity. April 1st, after Russian troops withdrew, the extent of civilian casualties and evidence of execution-style killings of civilians became known. In the basement of a children's summer camp, 18 mutilated bodies of men, women, and children were discovered in various stages of dismemberment or disfigurement, their ears cut off, teeth pulled out, hands tied behind their backs. Radio Free Europe called the basement, quote, "an execution cellar." Bodies in the streets, naked, hands tied, some half burned in an attempt to get rid of evidence. Civilian men were gathered, hands tied, and executed. A man on a bicycle, people carrying shopping bags, shot dead in the streets. Russian propaganda and its Western mouthpieces were quick to place blame. It was the Nazi Ukrainians themselves responsible for killing Ukrainians throughout the city. It was the Nazi Azov regiment, at once surrounded in Mariupol facing extinction, and sneaking through the Russia-liberated city of Bucha 650 kilometers away to sow death and frame the peaceful Russian forces. And all that bullshit. The civilian death toll, counted in the aftermath of Russia's exit, has reached 400 in Bucha. A mass grave has been excavated and bodies exhumed to be identified. An investigation by Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service, BND, concluded that the killings appeared to be deliberate, that intercepted communications matched Russian soldiers' comments with the locations of dead bodies in Bucha. BND concluded that the Russian mercenary company Wagner Group may be partly responsible for the killings. Well, at least Russia got part of their Nazi story correct. In spite of mounting evidence collected from investigations, time-stamped satellite images showing locations of bodies prior to Russian withdrawal, and eyewitness accounts, the Kremlin has not changed its story. 2 days ago, April 12th, Putin called the allegations simply fake. Relying on the disinformation playbook, Putin attempts to distract from the atrocities by stirring global memory of American atrocities in Syria, to distort by portraying a series of events in exactly no order or context. Quote, "Have you seen how Raqqa was turned to rubble by American aircraft? Corpses lay in the ruins for months, decomposing. No one even noticed. There was no such silence when they portrayed the use of chemical weapons by the Assad government. Then it turned out that it was fake. It's the same kind of fake in Bucha," end quote. There's a lot to unpack there, and it can hardly be unpacked. It is thick with misleading statements, half-truths, and the outright denial of reality. 20 kilometers away from Bucha, Borodyanka faces a similar fate. Russian troops have recently withdrawn from the area, leaving rescue workers to sift through the remains of bombed apartment blocks, homes, and buildings. Borodyanka is one of the hardest hit Ukrainian cities, having been subject to intense aerial bombardment. Much of the city is destroyed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the destruction is, quote, "much more horrific than what was uncovered in Bucha." At least 26 civilians are known to have died in a March airstrike. 200 people are missing. Few survivors are expected to be found in the ruins of 10 apartment blocks. At least 650 civilian bodies have been found in Bucha, Borodianka, and Hostomel since Russian forces have left all the areas. In the southeast, Mariupol, a much more public destruction has been underway. At least 5,000 civilians are known to have died, including 210 children. In Mariupol, city officials have reported that Russian troops have brought in mobile crematoriums to cover up the mass civilian casualties. 130,000 civilians remain trapped in Mariupol. They have been without regular access to food, water, and heat for 6 weeks, and the city is largely destroyed. A warning to listeners, the following segment covers the topic of rape. In our March 9th episode, Rape is a War Crime, we reported on the first allegations of rape as a war crime in Ukraine perpetrated by the Russian army. March 3rd, a doctor at the Karabalesh Polyclinic in Kherson confirmed 11 cases of rape by Russian troops occupying Kherson. Only 5 of the victims survived. We concluded that segment with a warning, quote, "It is only a matter of time before, in a conflict this size, we are confronted with the digital proof so often demanded of our victims. Only then, when the proof is too gruesome to stomach, will we believe it. But this does the victims no justice." End quote. Just over a month later, allegations of rape perpetrated by the Russian army are surging after troops leave previously occupied areas. Over this past weekend, allegations of a Russian soldier raping a baby began circulating on Twitter and subsequently the Ukraine subreddit. Post after post referenced a video allegedly posted and shared by the soldier. Post after post warned not to follow the link to the video. Post after post had the same replies. I wish I hadn't watched that video. Unfuck the Poor did not watch the video, and it should go without saying, we're telling you not to watch it either. However, because of the video, 24-year-old Russian Special Services officer Alexei Bychkov was identified and arrested. It has not been verified whether this video was taken inside Ukraine. Bychkov was arrested on March 8th after a woman who had sold him a car was contacted about Bychkov transporting children in that car without a car seat. The woman, Anastasia Tsirkis, had seen that specific video, as well as others involving sexual abuse of children posted by Bychkov, and wrote a statement to the police saying she, quote, did not know this bastard, end quote. Lyudmila Denisova, Commissioner for Human Rights in the Ukrainian Parliament, made a statement on Telegram Saturday indicating that this was not a one-off event, that reports of Russian soldiers raping children are becoming more common. As with the apparent massacre of Bucha, evidence of rape began to emerge once soldiers had left the city. Denisova reported that a 14-year-old girl in Bucha had been raped by 5 soldiers and was now pregnant. An 11-year-old boy in Bucha was raped in front of his mother. The New York Times reported that Volodymyr Shepitko, 66, left his home when Russian soldiers drove through their back fence, and upon returning home after the soldiers left a month later, Shepitko's nephew found a body in the cellar under their garden shed. A naked woman, draped only in a fur coat, shot in the head, her legs apart. Condom wrappers and a used condom were found in the house. Denisova has received many testimonials from survivors. A group of 25 girls and women, aged 14 through 25, had been kept in the basement of a house for 25 days and were repeatedly raped. 9 of them became pregnant. In Krasnivka, outside Kherson in the south of Ukraine, a pregnant 16-year-old was raped at gunpoint, her family in the next room. An 83-year-old woman was raped in her home, her disabled husband in the other room. A 16-year-old girl raped in the street in front of her sister, a mother of 4 raped for 12 hours in Kherson after a Russian sympathizer pointed her out to occupying troops and told them that her husband was a Ukrainian soldier. The reports of rape won't stop coming, and their stories don't end once they're told. Reported April 12th, an intercepted phone call released by the Ukrainian Secret Service Agency, a soldier's wife tells him that she will allow him to rape Ukrainian women. Really? I can? He asks. I allow it, she says. Just use protection. She laughs. They laugh. In a Twitter post from April 13th, Kyiv-based human rights lawyer Oleksandra Matviachuk writes, quote, Ukrainian women who are raped by Russians and left to Poland cannot have abortions there. Under Polish law, abortion is allowed in cases of rape, but there is no criminal case yet. Psychologists in Poland are convincing them that a new life is wonderful. They destroy the lives of both, end quote. Matviachuk is working with colleagues in Poland to help rape victims now leave Poland in order to get abortions. Poland has some of the most restrictive abortion laws in Europe, allowed only when the woman's life or health is in danger or as a result of a criminal act. A 2017 paper by Eva Hervonen estimates that between 80,000 and 200,000 Polish women per year go through with abortions, and 10 to 15% of those are performed abroad. Hervonen describes this practice as a very specific subtype of medical tourism. She calls it abortion tourism. It is a form of circumvention tourism, quote, in which a patient travels to another country to obtain such healthcare services which are illegal in his or her home country but legal in the destination country, end quote. Women travel most commonly from Poland to Germany and Britain for abortions, and Poland isn't fucking around. Last Friday, April 8th, Polish doula and human rights activist Justyna Wierzyńska went to trial and faces up to 3 years in prison for providing abortion pills to a woman whose husband was trying to force her to have a child. Wierzyńska is one of the founders of Abortion Dream Team, an activist group that campaigns against abortion stigma and works with the group Abortion Without Borders, which has received more than 30,000 inquiries in the last year alone. Poland is currently the most evacuated to country by Ukrainians fleeing the war. 2.6 million refugees have crossed the border into Poland since war began. That's 60% of all Ukrainian refugees. Poland is also a major donor to Ukrainian refugees, ready to spend $1.7 billion in aid for refugees already in the country. And the majority of humanitarian aid entering Ukraine comes from Poland: food, medicines, and sanitary aid. And because of its proximity to Ukraine, Poland also acts as a hub point for aid shipped to Ukraine from other countries. It is the monetary and logistical support Poland provides to Ukraine, combined with its strict abortion laws, that causes crisis. Morning after pills are available only by prescription, and it is practically impossible for a Ukrainian refugee to get such a prescription. Tighter border control means it is becoming harder to get abortion pills across the border and into Ukraine. Doctors are in a hard place, with many choosing to take the risk of a 3-year sentence to secretly provide abortion assistance to Ukrainian refugees. A Polish volunteer sums up the situation clearly, quote, "If this government poses a problem in distributing the morning after pills to the victims of rape in Ukraine, we will continue to provide them to women here in Poland, a problem no one is speaking about." End quote. Rape has a deliberate function in war. It is meant to demean, to stigmatize, to brutalize. Victims have reported that their rapists said they want to scare them away from men, to traumatize them so badly they won't want to be with a man ever again, to leave them with babies they don't want, Russian babies, to make them unwanted by Ukrainian men. This is genocidal rape. There is no scale here, 1 victim or 1,000. The intent is to stop Ukrainians from creating more Ukrainians. Who do we stand with when we say we stand with Ukraine? We stand with these women, these children, the victims of war crimes. Not just now, but in their recovery. Not because Russians made videos or because they laughed about it or because they bragged about it, but because we hear the victims' voices and feel their stories. Because no one knows this experience but them. For the victims of rape, the victims of massacre, the families left behind, and the families taken away, we stand. This was a short report for April 14th, 2022. Please visit abortion.eu to learn more about Abortion Without Borders, what it is, how they help, and how to donate. As always, we also ask that you check out helpingtoleave.org, a 24/7 organization that has helped over 7,000 refugees evacuate Ukraine. It is run by Russian dissenters whose main goal is to save Ukrainian lives. helpingtoleave.org.